Hello. This is an original Australian modern jazz quartet and the Oscar Peterson Trio at the Opera House. Um, the cover's pretty beat up, but the actual album itself, I got this years ago, cheap somewhere. Um, this would be in 1957. Yeah, a product of the vast resources of Electronic Industries Limited, which is Astor, the Australian um, manufacturer of white goods, radios, televisions, etc., had their own record label, Astor, but this was pressed by Astor, but it's got the Verve label, which I love, with the trumpet, the trumpet player up there on both sides. The album's in pretty good nick. The covers, I think it was probably a radio station one because they've made notes. That's interesting. So that's the reason why they've done that, is that they've written that they put the track listing wrong. So somehow, I love these filthy, musty plastic. That's the original plastic bag. Look at it. Oh, I love that. That's got some, DNA of all the people that have owned it. God knows who they were. But and mould and shit. I sort of get off on that smell, even though it gives me instant headache and I get sick. Yeah, the reason why that is, good old Astor have put the songs in the wrong order. So they've got Now's the Time, round about midnight, and D&E Blues, and it's actually D&E Blues. The last one's actually first, and the first one's last. Whatever. I sort of get off on that shit, I really do. I looked this up, and it seems to have a yellow cover everywhere else, but this is an Australian one, blue, black, and blue. Okay, now that's that silly rubbish out of the way. I've had a bad night, up and down, up and down. It's been raining for a week. It's depressing. I've had 2 triple strength coffees, and I'm tired as hell, but I'm too jazzed up to actually go back to bed yet. It's only 7:12. I'll probably go to bed about 9 o'clock this morning. Okay, just a funny thing. I was a photographic printer for most of my life, and technology did me out of a job in the late 90s. Computers came along, and this is what I'm talking on now, laptop, I'm not knocking it, it's great, but the thing is, it destroyed my trade, as they say. Anyway, so I thought, I fantasised. I was working in my last job in a darkroom. I was working for this rich bitch, and I was very good at my job, but she was such a bitch, I only lasted about 2 or 3 months there. And before I did quit, I said, oh God, she's a bitch. How can anyone stand working for this cow? And this guy said to me, he said, oh mate, he said, you have no idea how many printers we've gone through here. He said most of them last a week. I think I lasted 3 months. And the last thing I did is I stormed out of the building and going, fuck yeah, you fucking cunt. And I was walking up this alley. It's one of the bad part of Sydney, down around where a lot of bad shit goes on. And there were these two wretched junkies, standing there, and they turned to me about to say, "Can you give me some money?" And I said, "Fuck off, fuck you," and they go, "Fuck no," Anyway, so one of the things that I used to fantasize about while I was in this hideous place, churning out beautiful works of art and getting no thanks for it. Look, don't go on. So I used to fantasize about driving for the post office because my favourite author was Charles Bukowski, and this is a great, great book. So good, and it is so true. He wrote this in the 50s or 60s, early 60s. And when I ended up working for Australia Post, like early 2000, 20 years ago, nothing much had changed. Everything that he wrote about in this happened to me like 40, 50 years later. So this is like my Bible, this book, truly. And there's an old-fashioned post box. Colours are all wrong on this. It's all yellow. This is actually, it's coming up orange. It's actually red. So, yeah. See, the trouble is, I got the job driving a van, and trouble is in Sydney. It was in Sydney itself, and Sydney is not a planned city like Melbourne or Washington or any of those places. It's a rabbit warren, and it was built on old goat tracks. So I mean, it's a nightmare of a place to drive for a living. Absolute nightmare. It's a miracle I never killed anyone. Driving at high 80 kilometres an hour down back streets, trying to get impossible, pick up and deliveries done, and oh Christ, it was a nightmare. But and one time, someone had driven a van out of our depot, and someone on a motorbike had come up and slammed into him and was killed instantly. So, and then he was telling me about it. The next day I said, "Oh, that must have been awful for you," and all this shit. And then someone said, "Oh, look, Dave, can you go off and do this?" And I said, "Yeah, all right." I went down. The first thing I see when I get this, they give me the bloody van that the guy ran into and killed himself that just like 12 hours previous. And here's this passenger door completely smashed in. And I just looked at it and thought, "Oh, great. Thanks a lot." you know, it's like they didn't give a shit. It's just another day at the office or out of the office. And someone just ran instead of impounding it and getting it fixed and all that. No, someone ran into it and got killed on a bike last night. So what? Just take the van and go. So I'm driving around all day in a van with the passenger door caved in, knowing that a guy died. 12 hours. Anyway, yeah, had a lot of adventures with the post office. It had its good points because what it did was I got transferred a couple of times. I got the job by mistake. I mean, I applied and never heard back from them. And 3 or 4 months later, I was working in this ghastly factory job, and they rang me and said, "Do you want to?" And I went, "Yeah, all right." And when we got there, they said, "Who are you and what are you doing?" I said, "I'm here to be a driver." They said, "But we want truck drivers." And I said, "Well, I'm not a truck driver." And anyway, it was some idiot in Melbourne had made a clerical mistake, so they could, because it was the government, they couldn't just say, "Oh, piss off." They had to give me a job, so I ended up getting the job, and it was my last paid job after my trade was wiped out. I spent the last 7 years of my working life driving a van for Australia Post in the Sydney metropolitan area. I covered all the way up from way up the Hawkesbury River, Sydney Harbour, down to the Georges River. It's a huge area, and I didn't do it all. I worked way up there in one hub, in the middle in another hub, and finally ended up in the south in a hub, 3 different hubs. It's a huge area, Sydney, like 700 square kilometres or whatever the hell it is. But yeah, it had. it was nightmarish at times, really, truly nightmarish. But one of the things that um, I loved about it was I could always manage to get the right shifts where I could find my little record digs, like thrift shops, second-hand record shops, bookshops. So it had its benefits. I used to, I knew where they all were, and every day I'd be out there going through so it had its good moments. So I don't even know how I got on with this, to be honest with you. So that's it for today.